this isn't going to be a one-off deal. Every year, we're going to be reminded, have we done what it needs to be done to address the historic legacy of residential schools or the ongoing impacts of residential schools?
On the eve of September 30th, many Canadians are prepping for a new federal statutory holiday. But some provinces have made the decision not to officially observe the first ever National Day of Truth and Reconciliation.
What were residential schools, or what are the traumas of residential schools? What are the truths and realities of residential schools? They need to learn this.
The new Day of Reconciliation was created by the previous Liberal government, a day for Canadians to reflect on the legacy of residential schools, which until 25 years ago stole Indigenous children from their families and placed them in institutions run by the churches and the federal government. More than 150,000 were taken. Thousands died by neglect, abuse, and disease. Many families were never informed about their child's death. Despite a federal effort, Alberta, Saskatchewan, New Brunswick, Quebec, and Ontario have chosen not to recognize September 30th as a statutory holiday. Only federal servants and banks will have the day off.
On September 30th, I am going to be doing anything I can to help educate, to help engage with Canadians about this issue. So whether it's media or whether it's talking to my neighbors or whether it's posting in social media, publishing articles, whatever it takes to access people where they are, because they're not all sitting in the university classroom and they're certainly not all sitting at the 6 p.m. news.
The Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops is also taking part of the day to recognize their role in the residential school system.
Here in the Diocese of Calgary, we're only going to be working half of that day, and then the rest of it is devoted to education, to making sure that we have a webinar to explain and understand for our own personnel, our priests, our deacons, our lay people, what was the history and what was the devastation and the trauma that was caused by the residential school system.
Meanwhile, Commanda is planning to help educate those who are still uncertain what the day is all about.
Because many Canadians, I've been to several events in the past few weeks, and many Canadians are asking, well, what is this National Truth and Reconciliation Day? They're not aware that it relates to those residential schools.
In Ottawa, Nigel Newlove, City News.
Well, tomorrow is National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and City News will be bringing you coverage all day long. It begins with Breakfast Television as they chat with Indigenous leaders and organizations starting at 8:30 a.m. Then after City News, the documentary Runs Through Their Blood, A Life Impacted, which looks at the long-standing effects of the residential school system, will premiere at 7 p.m.